Hi everyone, Sean Bartley here. I'm the production dramaturg on Romance, and we wanted to spend a couple minutes on the blog today filling folks in about the rehearsal process now that the show has opened. It's a really different, challenging, and exciting rehearsal process from a lot of the other contemporary drama we do, and we wanted to sort of take people through it in a few quick minutes. You'll often hear folks who work in the theater say that comedy is much harder to rehearse and perform than tragedy. The execution of it has to be much more specific and tight. You'll also hear people who work on David Mamet's plays say that they're much more difficult to rehearse than many other contemporary playwrights. So when you put the two together, we're doing a wild new comedy by David Mamet, you need to understand just how busy and hectic that's kept us for the last 4 weeks. It's really exciting, but it's also incredibly arduous to get this play precise in a lot of ways. The mechanics of a David Mamet play on the page are very, very different. It's a really dense system of language. He's every bit as interested on the page in radical new uses of punctuation as he is in the actual words. You'll see Mamet plays are sort of a vast sea of strange commas, periods, ellipses. He capitalizes and italicizes in a very different way than other dramatists. It can be a little disarming the first time you look at it on the page, but what it creates is a system of language that is interested in, though not exactly precisely emulating, but thinking about the way that we speak to each other in real life, which is rarely in perfect, structured, metered, grammatically correct sentences. He's much more interested in the moments where our thoughts and our words don't necessarily sync up, where a character can try to get something out but not necessarily succeed at it. There's one moment we've worked on in the second scene of the play where a character says, I feel I am being remiss in my duties. He has 8 I's in a row. When you first look at it on the page, you say, what on earth is Mamet doing? But what he's trying to communicate is the internal situation for that character between trying to get out what he wants to get out in this heated moment when his language won't necessarily sync up with him. Just to give you an idea of how specific we have to be with this kind of material, here's a couple of examples. 4 or 5 times in the play, Mamet writes for a murmur. He doesn't specify lines, but it's everybody on stage, and there's 6 or 7 characters on stage, is supposed to come into groups and sort of mumble, as we might say, in sort of more traditional shticky comedy about what's just been said. We actually spent an entire rehearsal period one afternoon just working the murmurs. That's how precise you have to be with this work. It was one of those things that when we were done, I sort of sat back and thought about the complete absurdity of it, that a cast of professional actors and a professional director had just spent the better part of an afternoon talking about how to murmur. It's kind of insane in a way. But it's absolutely necessary for keeping the linguistic stakes and energy of his piece alive. I mean, one day last week we spent a good half hour of rehearsal on one punchline. I won't give it away, it's 5 words. We spent a half hour of rehearsal time on 5 words. And as crazy as that feels at times, once we succeed, the payoff for that is so exciting. It's a really, really wonderful cast of 7, and they're really nicely fit in the production to be directed by Scott Ziegler, a longtime Mamet associate. He was one of Mamet's original students in the early 80s, and in addition to directing many Mamet plays, he spent a lot of time in the rehearsal room with Mamet as he directed his own plays, and he can give us an incredible level of insight to what some of this strange, wonky punctuation and system of language is actually doing on the page through first-hand experience. Now that we've got the play in front of audiences, what I've learned is that once we're really locked in and the cast can really kind of technically rolling through what's happening on the page, it actually creates a different kind of laughter than I thought it would. There's lots of the traditional structure in this play of punchline, laugh, The actors hold, they hesitate, and they try to motivate the pause like they would on a sitcom, and then we continue with the next line. But once you get into the second half of this play, and the farce just really starts to move out of control, you also get a kind of continuous stream of laughter that's not big punchlines. You get those too, but you kind of get an undercurrent of maybe tittering or whispering among the audience that sometimes doesn't go away for minutes at a time when the play gets wild in the second half. And that's what's really exciting to me, is it's a totally different way not only of thinking about language, but of thinking about the way that an audience interacts with a comedy.